So India in Love is not my first work of nonfiction, and it's taken me a very long time to write it. I've traveled across this country to 12 cities, interviewed 500 people across age groups to really get a gauge of India's new sexual revolution and to figure out what's going on in these spaces of love, marriage, and sexuality. My understanding is that over the past decade, something really interesting has been happening here in this country in terms of sexual politics, and we're really arriving now at a watershed moment about people's changed perspectives, people's views towards marriage and sexuality. So India is really going through the biggest change that it has, perhaps in the past few centuries. And I've tried to put together all of these different topics as best as I can, and through interviews, through personal experiences, through expert opinions, through stories that I've looked and found within an age group of people. No, it's nonfiction completely, but I have really found that the best way of really doing this is through personal narratives. So I've culled through lots and lots of different stories to find one particular story which reflects the movement that's going on. But of course, in addition to that, we've got expert opinions, we've got various different sort of situations that I'm bringing across as well. No, this book is about, the full title is India in Love, Marriage and Sexuality in the 21st Century, and it's primarily focused on urban India, because I feel that India is urbanizing at a very, very rapid rate. Almost statistics say that every 1 minute, 37 people from the villages come into the cities. So I feel like what's happening in urban India will eventually happen in rural India. So I've captured that particular segment. Absolutely. That is, the India's economic revolution has really, it's been one of the points, like one of the impetus points for the social revolution. But the social revolution is what's kind of has been lurking underneath silently till now. But now we're seeing a lot of the sexual politics, the marriage politics, a lot of that is now coming on the surface. I think it's time. I think, like any revolution, if it's the industrial revolution, or other social revolutions that we've seen in various forms and in different places around the world, there will come a breaking point. And I think that we're slowly reaching that breaking point. What's special about India is all the sort of forces which hold it back. So we're seeing a lot of conservative forces. We're seeing a lot of backlash, be it from traditional, be it from religious groups, be it from social groups, to a lot of the movement. And sort of what's happened with 377 is a perfect example of this, is that there's, what should have passed and gone through has now, there's a lot of repressive forces which come in, but the battle will go on, and the movement has gained enough momentum now that no one can stop it. No, the movement is happening, in small pockets. So if there's, for example, a movement towards sexual education, that is happening now in a more organized way than it ever has before. If it's a movement towards India's gay revolution, that's happening. If it's women's rights, people are coming, ordinary women are coming together to really sort of talk about sexual rights and what's going on. So I think there is a certain kind of a movement, and people are beginning to organize, and technology has been a huge factor to really help to do that. Yes, education, the ability to have a voice online, the ability of using different channels to reach people, all of these different things have really come together now to form this, to really give legs to this revolution. There's a few different things. So if we talk about sex, we see there's positive sides to it. People are becoming sexually open. The conversations and dialogues are opening up. Safer sex is being discussed. Women are becoming more aware of their bodies. Men and women are interacting now on more equal terms. But at the same time, there's a whole dark side of this revolution. You see a lot of politics coming onto the surface. Sexual violence now is coming to the fore. There's a lot of stimulation that we see across the visual landscape of urban India. So a lot of these things are beginning to happen now. On the marriage front, we see divorces are skyrocketing, people are marrying later, nuclearization of families is going on. So there's a lot of different forces as well that are helping this. So we see a whole array of different consequences. In the future, there will be even more. Families are splitting up, urbanization is happening, less parents live with their children. Children are growing up in a very different way. A lot more women are working. So what the consequences of this new paradigm of marriage will be on the Indian family, that is yet to be seen. It is important, what I'm trying to do with this book, and what my real impetus was, and why I wrote this book, was as a young Indian woman, I found myself in the midst of this change. I found myself in the midst of urban and tradition between the West and the East. These sort of colliding forces around us. And I really felt that we need to this movement needs to be written about. India's sexual revolution is something which we all need to sort of be aware that this is happening and take the necessary the necessary steps to make sure it amalgamates in the right way. Well, I've spent about half my life in the US and half my life in India, but we come from a very traditional family. I don't think no one in my family is married outside of caste, for example. But for the first time now, caste is, for the very first time, there's people in my family who are beginning to marry outside of religion and outside of caste, and that's a first. So there are, in my life, very, very traditional forces, but I think having lived in the West, I'm able to look at these through a different lens, and that is maybe why I'm able to write about them in the way that I can.